Hello my sweets! Today I will be doing a paint with me video, so make sure you have all your awesome art supplies and whatnot so we can paint together. This is also a Q&A as well, and I will be answering all the questions that I have gotten from the last 3 months on my Instagram. I usually try my best to answer them on Instagram, but my average question load is usually about 40 to 60 questions, and today I'm going to answer all of them and the most frequent questions asked while we paint together. By the way, this painting was so refreshing to make. I'm a big fan of getting outside. I garden every year, so sometimes after I water my veggies and flowers, I go and get a nice blanket and some snacks and just lay outside with like a nice book to read. A lot of us don't know it, but not getting enough sunlight really can make you depressed. Like, seriously, if you stay cooped up in your house and in shadows all the time, it really starts to take a toll on your overall health. There was like a week I was so busy with packing shop orders and whatnot that I stayed inside that whole entire week, and I literally started feeling really sad. I was sitting in my bed one evening and I was like, why am I feeling this way? I started to even question myself and my abilities, and then started having like not super, but I started having negative self-thoughts, and I usually never ever do. So I got up and I was like, you know what? This is enough. I'm not dealing with this negativity right now. I got my quote unquote chilling outside gear, and I stayed outside reading for about an hour or two. When I finally came back in, I felt 1,000 times better. So be sure to go outside and just relax. Bring some nice healthy snacks, a nice ice cold drink, and a nice book to read, or even paint outside. That's nice too. And just get lost in it, and you'll feel a ton better. Now on to all art related questions. So the first question is, how did you find your art style? I'd have to say that I found my art style, well, firstly, like I usually say online, to me and to my opinion, the best way to find your art style is to focus more on developing your artistic skills. So I've noticed that a lot of artists, not all, a lot of artists will focus on other artists' art styles and try to, I'd have to say, assimilate to be like that. And there's nothing wrong with being inspired by another artist's illustrations and be like, wow, I want to be able to create, certain things of that caliber as well. But I think when you focus too much on it, then you lose your ability to be able to cultivate your own style rather than just assimilating to that particular artist's style. So I feel like if you're trying to be unique and cultivate your own unique abilities, I think the most important thing to do is focus on illustration skill sets such as anatomy, composition, coloring, shading in your artwork. So through the building of your own skills and techniques, you will hence develop your own unique style rather than constantly making your artwork look a particular way like a certain artist. Because I've seen a lot of that, especially like on Instagram, where you'll have like one artist who makes a certain type of artwork, and then a lot of artists, I guess, like that illustration style, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lack of cultivation and uniqueness from each artist. It's like there's this one artist who has one style and then everyone likes that, so they just all assimilate. And why do that when you can make up and build up your own individual style? I think that's better. Now on to question 2. How do you get inspiration? I usually get my inspiration from life, retro anime. I'm a huge fan of old school animes. I personally think that they're a lot better than the newer ones that are made today. And a lot of the storylines, character designs, outfits really inspire me a lot when it comes to a lot of things that I do for my art page as well as my brand, Chinchilla. I also get inspiration from a lot of cute girls on Instagram or even Pinterest too. A lot of girls that I follow, who are, most of them particularly are women of color, always have like this nice, unique presence amongst them. And I really appreciate all the effort and uniqueness that they put into looking cute and adorable, and I really appreciate that about them, and it greatly inspires me when I see their posts and everything like that. So I get inspiration from a lot of various things. I also like to listen to a lot of old, like 80s Japanese pop music from the old school animes as well, so a lot of that inspires me too. So there's multiple things that inspire me all the time. The third question is, how do you practice anatomy and poses? So way back, I used to actually, this is before I actually got a drawing pad, a tablet. I used to actually look at anime and then have a sketchbook, and then I used to draw out the pose as best as I could and then continue to practice it over and over again until I actually got better. Those were my beginning days. I was really hardcore trying to, because I'm also a 2D animator, so I wanted to, anatomy is very important to me in that sense, because animation, I do animation as well as illustration. But you can practice anatomy even easier these days, since a lot of people themselves, individuals, make themselves, like, I don't want to say mannequins, but like muses in that sense. There's a lot of artists who have created anatomy sketches for people to use, like on Pinterest and whatnot, that can be used for anatomy. Sometimes you can even use a family member. I know I've done that in situations where I've asked my brother to hold still real quick so I could draw his anatomy and practice it so I could get better. So there's many ways to practice anatomy and poses. I mean, a lot of hand poses that I've made in illustration, I've literally held a glass or something and took a picture of my hand so I can get that exact pose, because sometimes you can't find the pose, quote unquote, that you might need to reference online, so it's better sometimes to just ask a family member. Or you want to draw a picture of someone holding a pen, get a pen, hold it in the hand you want to draw it, and then hold it in your hand the way you want to draw it, and take a picture of it and draw it. That's what I usually have done over the years, especially in my beginning days before I even had a graphic tablet to a tablet to draw on. I was one of those old school artists, you sketched, you scanned, and then you digitally drew. I've been actually stopped drawing like that, except for traditional. I stopped doing that 2017. That's when I stopped doing that. But yeah, that's I feel like a good way to practice anatomy are some of those ideas I mentioned. The fourth question is, how do you draw different ethnicities? So when it comes to me and how I create different skin tones, different textures, and of hair and everything like that, my biggest focus isn't necessarily, I don't want to say that I don't draw different ethnicities, but I do. But my main focus is the representation of different phenotypes, as in melanin shades, hair textures. Those are the main focuses that I do when it comes to my illustrations. Most of the characters that I do draw are Black women, indigenous women, and whatnot, but I do also draw other ethnicities as well. I'd have to say that I have been practicing super hard, and I haven't shown any yet, but I will soon, of the specific Asian phenotype, because of they have I don't necessarily know how to describe their specific phenotype for their eyes, but I had the hardest time being able to draw that. And I've been practicing super hard because there's even Black people and other people of color who have that phenotype as well, and I want to represent that in my illustrations. But other than that, my main focus for drawing and representing different peoples is melanin shades, hair textures, and also sometimes different clothing styles, because a lot of clothing styles also represent culture as well. So there's things like that. Even though I only drew one illustration like that, it's still something that I will do and look forward to doing even more in the future. The fifth question is, where do you get your references from for your work? So a lot of references that I get are from, as I said in the third question, from models that I work with, that work for my brand Sharon. Let me be specific about that. Also, like I said, Instagram girls who are super cute and everything like that and creative. And I also get my references from Pinterest. I made an account, and I also just suggest everyone to make an account so they can get inspiration of different ideas, color schemes, poses. I mean, it's a huge log of like references that you can use on there and everything like that, that you can use as inspiration for your illustrations. So that's what I usually do. I use cute girls from Instagram, models and whatnot, and I use Pinterest, and I also use myself. A lot of times I take pictures of my hands, or I'll have personal pictures that I might reference a pose from. So it comes from life, Instagram models, and sometimes Pinterest. There we have it. The next question is, did it take long for you to find your style? I'd have to say, to answer this question, that when it comes to you finding your style, or anything that you're trying to build yourself in, you shouldn't necessarily put like some type of stopwatch on where you should necessarily be in a certain time. I think that the main focus should be is the cultivation of your skills. It's great to look at other artists who you are inspired by and see their abilities and be inspired to want to be like that, but don't forget about cultivating your own self. And I think that rather than being like, oh, I don't know how to do this yet, or I don't know how to do that yet, instead of focusing on the time span in which it took you to get there, you should just be putting your energy in the work, into actually building your skills and mastering whatever hurdle you're having when it comes to your illustration skills. Like, for example, for me, I used to have the hardest time for the longest time drawing men and male anatomy, because female anatomy is based off of circles and curves, while male anatomy is based more off of lines and more rigid angles. And I would have a big problem with that, but I didn't want to not have the ability to draw men. So I knuckled down and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And I practiced and practiced and practiced. And I didn't look at the time of, oh, it's been 3 weeks, or it's been a month, it's been 6 months and I haven't gotten there. If you start focusing and looking at time and being like, I haven't gotten here yet because of this time, then you actually start losing progress. So I would suggest, instead of looking at the time, focus on building your abilities and your illustration skills. And before you know it, you're going to be like, wow, I completely know how to draw hands or men or flowers or whatever your hurdle is. I think that that should be your focus. Next question is, what is your least favorite thing to draw? I actually don't necessarily have something that I don't really like drawing that I can think of. I mean, in the past, if you were speaking to old me, it would have been hands, men, animals, and backgrounds. But I didn't want to be held back by those things. So all the things that I did not like to draw, I trained myself to draw, so that I could have the abilities, because I don't want to be limited in my skills. Oh, you know what? Actually, I take that back. I have one thing I don't like to, not necessarily don't like to draw, but I'm training myself to draw, is like robots, like cyborgs, like, like the anime Gundam. Like, I'm not good at drawing like machinery, like robots, because machinery and robots require a lot of angles, and everything like that. They're not usually very smooth to draw. They're usually very angular, metallic, and whatnot. So I'd have to say that's something that I'm not the best at drawing. I wouldn't say I don't like it, but my skill level for it is low right now. So I'll say that. Next question is, how long does it take you to complete an illustration? It actually depends on the type of illustration, whether it's traditional or digital, I'd have to say for my digital illustrations, it might take me about 1 to 4 hours, depending on the intricacy of the illustration. And for my traditional illustrations, it could take me about maybe, depending again on the intricacy, but usually I make my traditional illustrations more intricate than my digital, so it usually takes me about 3 to 6 hours depending on the size. Most of my illustrations that I've drawn traditionally recently have been 8x10, but this year hopefully I'm gonna start also doing some more personal challenges and drawing on my old 18x12 illustration paper, watercolor paper, and I've also got some 18x24 size paper coming, so I can draw on that size, because it's good to challenge yourself, you know? Next question is, what's something you want to improve on? Currently in my illustrations that I make, I wanna improve on being more, I don't know, neater with my paintings. Sometimes I feel like, excuse me, that they're a bit sloppy a little bit. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I want to get better when it comes to using inks, when it comes to traditional painting, because I actually prefer doing traditional illustrations, and I'm gonna try my damnedest to make sure I do more traditional illustrations by the end of this year. I made up a whole bunch of sketches, so I need to get busy and paint them. But I want to improve on inking, being more neater, being more neat with watercolor painting, and yeah, I mean, that's all I can think of at the moment, but that's what I'm currently working on doing. Next question is, how do you make lovely lines within your art? Well, for digital illustrations, I usually sketch it out, and then I clean up the sketch, and I like my lines and my illustrations to be colored, so I go through the painstaking trouble of coloring the lines of my illustrations because I feel like it makes the colors pop. And I also do the same thing for traditional. I will either color the lines of my illustration with an ink pen, an archival ink pen, or gouache, or mica watercolor, or I said gouache already, and I think that's it. Yeah, and other than that, I like my lines and my illustrations to be colored because I feel like it makes the illustration pop. It makes the colors more defined, and I like that. Next question is, did you go to art school? The answer to that is no. I'm 100% self-taught in traditional, digital, and animation. Nothing against anyone who goes to art school and gets their illustration skills from there, but I personally feel like art is something that should be open when it comes to creativity. I have a couple of friends who went to various art schools and they're amazing artists, but I've just noticed personally that their abilities, while they are great, they just seem kind of limited. I feel like when you're taught art specifically, I mean, art is supposed to be open and creative, and there's not supposed to be any necessary boundaries when it comes to, creativity. But I've noticed that when you're taught in school, at least from my friends that I know, in watching them and knowing them and their art illustration skills, that they are more limited based off of what they were taught, and they define their art by the guidelines of what they were taught, and they don't really go outside of those boundaries. And as I said again, their illustrations are magnificent and amazing, but I've just noticed that they stay in one section and they don't really venture out. Again, that's based off of my personal experiences, but for me, no, I did not go to art school. I am 100% self-taught. Next question is, how long have you been drawing? So I've been drawing actually ever since I was like 2-3 years old, and haven't stopped, but I actually knuckled down to become professional as an illustrator probably 4 or 5 years ago. So I've been drawing all my life, but professionally I've been drawing for about 4 or 5 years now. Next question is, what are your favorite colors? So my favorite colors are, I'd have to say, violet. I love a magenta. I love peacock blue. Peacock blue is such a beautiful color. It you know what? Peacock blue just reminds me of the ocean when I see it. Like, the color is blue, but yet it also has kisses of like a nice meridian type green, and it's just so beautiful. That's like one of my favorite colors. I love sapphire blue, lavender. Those are really nice colors I like, but I like a whole bunch of different colors. Like, you know, sometimes I'm going through my watercolors and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so pretty. So I like a whole bunch of colors, but my favorite, I'd have to say one of my favorites is peacock blue. Another question is, do you do commissions? Yes, I do both digital and traditional commissions. Currently, at the moment, I'm about to reopen my shop. So they're gonna be available when I open my shop. I keep my commissions limited because I usually have shop orders and I take care of my pin club. So usually if I do get commissions, it's usually sometimes a lot of requests, and I usually like to keep only a couple of, not too many slots for both traditional and traditional open, because I don't want to be overloaded with a whole bunch of commissions. And even still, even sometimes the ones that I get can be a lot, especially not even digital but traditional, because digital illustrations are easy to make, but traditional watercolor illustrations for a specific person can be a bit difficult, and it can also be very time consuming. And since I'm open for traditional, since sometimes I am open for traditional commissions, it takes me a long time to finish them, because, you know, watercoloring takes time. There is no undo button, so if I mess up, I have to redo the whole thing. So yeah, it's more time consuming and everything like that to do traditional illustrations, commissions, but it's nice. But yes, when my shop is open, I'm open for commissions, but I usually say if I'm open for commissions right on my page. Like in the description part of my Instagram, I always say whether my commissions are opened or closed. So if you're looking to inquire about commissions or even wonder if I'm open, make sure that you go to my Instagram and you look at the description to see if it says open or closed. That will be that is the absolute best indicator on whether I'm available for commissions or not. Next question is, do I have any tutorials online? Actually, I did make a how to use a reference digital tutorial on my YouTube, but I actually kept making tutorials and illustration tutorials for my pin club. A lot of people who follow me are not only pin collectors but also artists themselves, and for the club that I had, I would make exclusive illustrations, sketch dumps, art tutorials, and whatnot. I was thinking about doing something like that again, but I still add that to my pin club. So if you're interested in getting art tutorials and whatnot from me as an illustrator, please be sure to join my Patreon, and the link for that will be below this video. Next question: what advice would you give to a young artist who is trying to put themselves out there? I would say that one of the biggest things of advice that I can give is to focus on your own illustration skills. I know I've said this many times in this video, but it is so important to, rather than always focusing on the process of others, you should be focusing on the process of yourself. And I know a lot of artists get so caught up in the number, as in followers and whatnot, when it comes to illustrators and other artists that you see, or even your favorite illustrators. And I would say not to get caught up in numbers, because followers does not dictate necessarily skill set. So, you know, I would say that the biggest challenge that you'll face is becoming better. I mean, as you grow as an illustrator and become more confident in your abilities, then so will the people who follow you and everything like that. Don't focus on followers. For the longest time, even though my following has grown, my biggest focus was not how many followers I had. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm thankful that people are interested in my illustrations and in my art and everything like that, but I think it's more important to give more focus to your illustration skills, because for me, as for using myself as an example, I was just like, I need to become better when it comes to this and that. And I would see other artists that I love do illustration work, and I'd be like, what, I want to be on that level. I want to be able to make traditional illustrations and whatnot like that. And it just made me turn back to myself and knuckle down on my skills, rather than being like, oh, I'm not at this many followers yet or anything like that. Don't get caught up in that. Even though, yes, there is some semblance of importance to it, don't get caught up in that. Get caught up in building yourself and mastering yourself and your skills. So next question is, favorite brushes to use? Which medium do you mean? Because there are brushes in digital and traditional. So for digital, I make my own brushes. I use Easy Paint Tool Sai, which is a older Japanese digital program, and I make my own brushes on there. They have brush settings, and you can tinker with all the different types of brushes that they have, and I make my own. And for traditional, I usually just grab some brushes from Walmart or some brushes from Amazon or my local art store here, based off of the size, the hair quality of the brush, and that's what I go by. I don't have any necessarily brands for traditional brushes that I use, because personally I'm not brand specific, because brands don't necessarily mean good quality. Like, just because a brush was made by a certain quote-unquote high quality brand doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, and just because something was made from an off-brand doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I found so many brushes that are magnificent from off-brands that most people haven't heard of. So I would go by quality for traditional brushes, but yeah, I usually go to Walmart, my local art supply store, or I might get them offline. And for digital, I make my own. Next question is favorite art program to use. So the only art program that I use for digital illustration is Easy Paint Tool SI and Photoshop CC 2015. That's my favorite version of Photoshop. That's the one that I have, and I actually don't know how to draw in Photoshop. I know that's gonna sound crazy, but I actually do like 97% of all the illustration work on Easy Paint Tool SI. It's a great illustration program. It's Japanese. I purchased it. A lot of people get it cracked, but I purchased it because the company is so small and they're so nice. So I purchased it. I think it was about like $45. So that's nothing. And I don't know. I've been using them for years. I'm still learning things about the program, and they're a really nice program. As for Photoshop, I literally have no idea how to draw in that program. I see a whole bunch of artists drawing in it, but I have no clue. I just use it to add certain brushes or effects or text to it. But other than that, I just mainly use Easy Paint Tool SI and Photoshop CC 2015 for the effects. That's it. Now that all art related questions are done, I am now going to start answering personal and project related questions. So the first question for that is, what inspired you to make your hentai manga? So any of you who follow me know that I made Moonlit Anniversary and Moonlit Eve hentai. And what inspired me to make my hentai was, I'm a big fan of vanilla hentai. I really like that genre because it's so sweet and cute. And I would notice when I would watch the hentai that there were no people of color, and if they did have a person of color or melanated people there, you were thinking that the girl or the guy was melanated because they'd be brown, but then when they like took off their shirt, you would see that it was just nothing but tan lines. And I got really tired of seeing that. I was just like, and let me say also, if they do have a person who is a completely actual melanated person of color in the hentai, then usually, not all the time, but usually they're put in a degraded situation. Like, I've seen so many hentais where if they have like a black man or a melanated man in the hentai, he's like, either he's evil or he's like, they make him look like he's ugly or something like that, while everyone else is not. He's usually used as nothing but a sexual tool, and even the women too. Like, he's like for example, like the dark elves, like they're usually just used as just sexual tools most of the time. For at least what I've seen, there's really no real plot behind the character. They're usually just a sexual tool that's either being degraded or used, and then that's it. There's no like real plot twist behind them. And I know it's hentai, so it's around that, you know, sex and whatnot, but I just seen a constant repetition of the act of people who are portrayed with more melanin in hentai is usually just their casting is usually either low or degraded somehow, and I didn't want to do that. I got tired of seeing that, so I made my own. Another thing that inspired me to make my hentai is that when it comes to Black entertainment, illustrations, or media, or stories, I've just noticed within the media sector that they usually portray Black relationships in a negative light. And if there is positivity where there's some type of stability between the two partners, especially between a man and a woman, then if it is good in the beginning, it becomes chaotic. And I've noticed that in media, it's always chaotic. There's always some type of drama, whether it's affairs, whether it's some type of physical or psychological abuse. And I've noticed that in a lot of Black entertainment medias that circle around us. It's very bothersome, and I wanted to make something that was hentai, but also just showed a relationship between like a Black man and a Black woman that was stable and happy. The next question is, do you design your own websites? And the answer to that is yes. I love to design my own websites. I love to make the themes for the websites and everything like that. I really enjoy making like cute little gifts to be like the little sponsor or just the website world protagonist or character of the website. Like I'll make a cute little demon girls or little angel girls or dancing girls. Like I like doing stuff like that. I was gonna do something super hot for Halloween. I really hope you ladies love it. I'm excited to show everyone. But yes, I do design my own websites. Next question is, what do you do in your free time? And usually for that, I usually spend tons of time with family, friends. I like watching movies with my family and playing video games, and I watch anime. I usually talk to my friends either on Discord or we'll all get together in my backyard for like a little lunch or something all together and talk and hang out. Those are the things that I really enjoy doing, spending time with the ones that I care about. Next question is, do I draw for a company? I'd have to say yes and no. Yes, because not only do I draw for my own brand and company, but if other people reach out to me who have their own brands and companies and whatnot for commercial work, I work for them in some cases on a specific item or request of the commercial commission that they're paying for. And again, I draw for my own brand Shenshira, so there's yes to that. I just added context. Yay! So the next question is, what inspired you to make your hentai's main characters Aonia and Osiris? And I'd have to say that I made Aonia and Osiris to represent Black relationships and a Black man and a woman working together and who are happy and quirky in their own ways and not perfect, and come together and have love and respect for each other and build. It's also a way to go against the negative media narratives that are usually shown about Black relationships, that there's some type of psychological abuse going on or cheating and all this other stuff, like this drama. And I'm not saying that there's no drama between Aonia and Osiris, or in a good relationship. I feel personally there's always going to be drama, but what that drama is and how that entails the relationship is completely different. Like, physical and psychological abuse should not be something that's going on in the relationship, but for some reason in the media, with the stories and the movies and everything that's centered around us, a lot of the time it's usually like that. And I made Ionia and Osiris to combat the negativity, so we can have a good depiction of positivity between like black people, a black relationship, a black man and a black woman. Next question is, are you and Shenshira the same person? Yes. Shenshira is my brand for Gilman 9005. So I'm the artist, Mina, Gilman 9005. I'm the artist for my brand, Shenshira. So yes, Shenshira and Gilman 9005 are together. We're one entity. That's my brand for my artistry. Yes. So the next question is, will you be putting your short film on DVD? When it comes to my short film, Mutual Crush, which sadly probably won't be releasing 2020 because I am not done with animating it. I am not 100% sure about that. There's a lot of things that would have to go into me making it a DVD, and I would want it to look wham bam, thank you ma'am, professional as hell, and I have absolutely no idea how to do that. I guess I could look into it. Maybe I might make it into a DVD. I'm not 100% sure, so we'll see on that one. The next question is, will you sell more hentai manga? Now, firstly, I'd like to say thank you so much for everyone's love and support when it came to my manga. I'm absolutely honored and thrilled I was able to sell 100 copies, so thank you so much. Now, yes, there is more in my shop currently for pre-order. I just would like to say that I appreciate everyone requesting for my manga to be put on the market again, but this will be the final restock that I do for my hentai, because of the fact that I really would like to work on other projects that need to come to life rather than staying stuck on my hentai, Moonlit Eve hentai. So once this one is sold out, it's sold out, and I will not be restocking it for quite some time. So get it while you can, please, and thank you so much for all your love and support. Next question is, what does your workspace look like? So currently I have two workspaces. I have my computer area where I fulfill all my orders and everything like that, and then I also have my painting area where I have my paintings, my supplies, brushes, books, you name it. My fulfillment area, even though I try very, very, very hard to keep it as organized as possible, sometimes when I'm fulfilling orders, it can look a little bit chaotic. So I usually don't show pictures of what that looks like. I might end up doing it just to give people an idea how I keep my fulfillment area. But for my painting area, I mean, it looks basically exactly the same. I actually have photos of my art studio and my painting area on my Instagram and my highlights for people who are interested in looking. Next question is, what is your favorite season? My favorite season, hands down, is autumn. I live in New York State, and I live basically almost in the countryside, and when you get on the hilltops, all you can see are just rolling hills with trees, and during autumn, all of the trees are like a different variety of maples and whatnot, and they all turn a magnificent colors of golds, reds, browns, and everything like that, and it's just so beautiful and breathtaking. Like, one of my favorite quotes ever is autumn is the second spring where every tree becomes a flower. So I love that quote, and I absolutely love autumn. It is my absolute favorite season. Next question is, how did you publish your hentai? So I didn't go through a publishing company. I knew that's an option that people can do. But I actually just went to a printing company that I work with, and first I got the custom template sizes for the page and the book size that I wanted, and then I made my illustrations about 2 times bigger than that, but in the same margins, so that when they downsized it didn't lose quality. And then they just printed it off for me, and that's how I published, or rather created, my own hentai. You don't necessarily need a publisher to make your own hentai or mangas or anything. You can actually just do it yourself. It's much easier and way less expensive that way. Next question is, what are your future plans for your art? Currently, the only thing that I'm worried about at the moment is finishing my short film Mutual Crush, and then after I finish my short film with Mutual Crush, how I will distribute it and whatnot. But after that, especially for my old school fans who've been following me for quite some time, I am going to work really hard into producing my shoujo manga, Vampire Witch Lucinda. I need to really post current pictures of it that I've been working on. But yes, so after my short film, I want to work and finish it. Everything's done with it. I want to start working on my manga, and then that's going to probably consume me in my time. But other than that, currently those are my projects that I'm working on and going to be trying to finish up. Next question is, can I purchase more than one commission? The answer is yes. For example, if you got a personal commission, or an icon rather, and then you loved it and you would like to get another icon or portrait or full body, as long as 1, I'm open for commissions, and 2, as long as they're still in stock, you can get as many commissions as you'd like. I'd also like to say to those who have gotten traditional and digital commissions from me, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Next question is, what different types of advertising methods do I use? I'd have to say for both my business Shenshira and my art page, I don't necessarily use methods of advertisement. I mean, I'm so sorry, but I'm just a little confused on how to answer that question. When it comes to me promoting my illustrations, I usually just post them, and I mean, that would be it. I mean, I think when it comes to advertising, the biggest forms of advertising, especially on Instagram, which is my main platform that I use, is just having people who enjoy your artwork share it in their stories, or sometimes there's like art Instagram profiles, and they take your artwork and put it on their page, and then they'll tag you and stuff like that. Like Nubia Mancy, like they've taken quite a bit of my artwork and reposted it and then tagged me as the artist. So I don't pay for advertising, and I don't use like Instagram ads or Facebook ads or anything like that, because I don't want to spend money I don't want to spend my money when it comes to doing something like that. I just rather it be like natural, I guess is the best word. I would just focus on, like I always say, just building up yourself and your artistry. And I feel like with you, the focus of mastery of the self, then you'll naturally have people drawn to that energy and wanting to come and enjoy your illustrations. So that's all the personal advice I can give for that. Next question is an art related question that I forgot to actually answer, which is, what is my favorite medium to use? So personally, when it comes to drawing, I actually prefer traditional. That's another reason why I always look forward to Inktober, because Inktober is like the month in which I completely dedicate all my illustration skills to drawing traditional. I personally also enjoy using watercolors, gouache. I'm actually still like training myself a little bit on using gouache because it's more opaque than watercolors. Inks, I'm trying to also become better at using inks, and really that's it. So I like, using inks, mica watercolors, by the way, gouache and inks. I really prefer to use that medium personally. Next question is, what advice I could give for artists who are looking to open commissions? So one of the biggest things that I feel like an artist should have if you're opening commissions is your own set of terms and conditions when it comes to how commissioning you is going to work. So that would include pricing, what type of commissions, whether it be digital, traditional, or the process in which on how the commission will work, your do's and your don'ts on what you can create, what you cannot create, as well as talking about how the payment structure is going to move and everything like that. I think it's very knowledgeable for not only the illustrator but also the client who's interested in commissioning the artist, so they can know everything of how it works. And how everything goes when it comes to commissioning you personally as an illustrator. Also, I think it's important for illustrators to also understand whether they are going to open themselves up for commercial and or personal commissions. They are not the same. One is personal, as in one is made for just the individual to not make a profit on, and commercial is for profit, where the client has the ability to reprint, recreate, and also sell that image on logos, t-shirts, prints, apparel, whatever they desire. So you have to think up personally the pricing difference on how those will be for yourself as an illustrator too. Well, my lovelies, here is the overview of the finished illustration. I'm so sorry you didn't get to see me do the white detailing. For some reason that video got like corrupt during the transfer and it's really upsetting, but I'm trying my best to make sure that doesn't happen next video. But yeah, as you can see, the painting is all relaxing and just refreshing, just sitting back and just enjoying life and nature and just relaxing and just stepping away from it all. Social media has really taken over our lives, and it's really good to just step away from it all a lot of times. Well, this concludes the art video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Everything is in the description below. Be blessed and take care.